Couple weeks ago, Casey said, "Hey, do you want to say a few words at the Hall of Fame dinner?" And now I'm the guest speaker, so I don't want to try to set the expectations here. What a night! What an incredible night for Nebraska soccer, and I say that on lots of different levels. Casey mentioned Union Omaha. I mean, here we are. Our city has our first pro championship tonight. What an incredible way for us to celebrate together. It's fitting that we're celebrating the history of Nebraska soccer tonight. There's a lot of things to be excited about that Casey mentioned. I kind of wanted to touch on a few things regarding the growth of soccer in Nebraska. Tonight we're kind of here to celebrate the history of Nebraska. We're recognizing 7 individuals who basically have gone above and beyond to shape what is today, right? Today, what does Nebraska soccer look like today? And so from that lens, let me give you a little bit of perspective. We have our Union Omaha championship, right, in League One. We've got our Creighton men's Blue Jays team is battling it out in the second round of the NCAA tournament tomorrow. Our Blue Jays, go Blue Jays. Our Bellevue University men's team did lose this afternoon, but they were in the second round of the NAIA tournament, which is fantastic. Our UNO women's team had their best record ever this season, right? So there is a ton of growth. I had the opportunity this summer to go down to the Nationals tournament, the US Weist Nationals tournament, which is a fantastic event, right? It's the culmination of all the clubs and their quest for, right, the title, the best team in the country. And so Nebraska not only put a team into the finals, right, advance out of regionals into finals, but our Sporting Nebraska girls got all the way to the final game, which is fantastic. How cool is that, right? What amazing dreams are made during those days. So when we think about those recent successes, what we rarely do is we rarely take a moment to think about, right? How did this all happen? How did they get there, right? And so tonight it's a little bit of an evening of about the history coming together, right? The present, which is now us, and then the future, right? And I say the future because I'm hoping, right, we're reaching people tonight that will contribute going forward, right? Come be a part of our organization, help us write history as we speak, right? Let me give you a little bit of hierarchy on U.S. soccer and where we fit real quick. And I do that just so you understand what a state association is. And I've been involved with soccer for a long time, but until Casey told me I had to come be part of the board, I didn't have a great understanding of it all, right? So just as a refresher, all right? U.S. soccer is at the top, right? The federation. From there, you've got members, right? Which includes our governing body, which is U.S. Youth Soccer, okay? And then below that, there are other members as well. And then below that are the state associations, and that's where we fit, right? So there's 50 some odd state associations, and so our charge is to take care of our state and our local players. What I can tell you is that we are a small state by number size, relatively speaking. That's probably not surprising to many of you, but we compete, right? We have really good coaching, we have really good structure, we have really good people in place that believe in the game. So that's super exciting to be a part of. I mentioned that the team making it to the Nationals this year. Not all states do that at our size, right? We average around 20,000 players a year. So, you look at the Californias and the Texas and the Floridas, right? Hundreds of thousands of players. So super proud to be a part of that. What I think is really cool about our group, we invest a lot of time, money, and resources into growing the game here in Nebraska. So just for an example, we've got partnerships with Union Omaha, we've got partnerships with Club Leaders FC, which is a semi-pro team, college age, right? We've got GEA has their group here in town doing the UWS program on the women's side, which is again college age. And then you think about the partnerships that we're forming. We mentioned Safe Sport earlier today. We've just signed our partnership with Smart Gen Society, which we're trying to help protect kids from social media. So it's much more than just soccer, right? There's a lot that comes with it. A couple other things that I want to touch on. We're working really hard to support the referee system here in Nebraska, to help grow the numbers, development, and that is so vital to the future. When you leave here tonight and you end up out on a soccer pitch, man, and support those referees, right? And help be a calming influence out there. Because without those referees, we don't have a game to play. We continue to try and manage resources and grow fields, right? It's ironic. We have a ton of land in Nebraska, not a lot of soccer fields, right? So that's a challenge, right? So if anybody's looking to donate land, come visit me after the evening. We're happy to talk. And of course, we've got coaching education, which is a big part of what we do as well. So, but none of this is possible, right? None of this tonight, none of everything that I've described, none of this is possible without our volunteers, right? And this is kind of the essence of our organization. There are, and so myself included, right? I've been with the board about 4 years now. I had hair when I started, and so it's a quick digression, but it's challenging, it's rewarding. I consider it an investment into my community, and we always need new voices, right? And I mentioned this morning at the AGM. Our board especially, we need more diversity. And I said this morning that it's ironic, right, that you're hearing that message out of the voice of a middle-aged white man. But that's the truth, right? We need more people, not just race and gender, right? What's your background? What skill set can you bring to our organization, right? How can you help grow the game? Some people say, well, I don't know anything about soccer. Great, that's perfect, we'll take it, right? Because we want your fresh ideas. Sometimes what you don't know will bring a ton of value to the people that know too much about the game, right? So we encourage you to spread the word and help other people get involved. I just ask you, when it comes to that, ask yourself, how can you help build the foundation of soccer that our 7 inductees tonight worked so hard to create? And I don't imagine that any of our inductees sat around while they were working away and volunteering their time to think, well, maybe one day I'll be recognized at the Nebraska State Soccer Hall of Fame dinner, right? They did it because they love the game. That is the common thread that we all have. I love the game an incredibly amount. It's been a part of my life since I was 5, 6 years old, right? And tonight I have the opportunity to continue to share that with my son, who's here with me. And that's what it's all about. It's about family, right? It's about coming together, supporting each other, being a part of a great game, the thing we call the beautiful game, right? And it's a universal language. And I love that about this sport, because I can take my ball, right? And I can go anywhere in the world. And we can have religious differences, economic differences, right? Social differences, language barriers. But when I bring that ball, right, there's a recognition, oh, we have the same thing in common, right? We both love this sport. That's the thing I love about this game. And so, just to wrap this up, what I'd ask for, tonight is that hopefully some of you that are sitting out there have that recognition, right? When you listen to the stories of our inductees tonight, do you have that recognition when you go, I can identify with those qualities, I can identify with their vision, I can identify with the fact that they want to be a part of their community, help their community grow, and be a part of the game that we all love so much. I want to say thank you to Casey and Molly and Crystal and our staff for putting on this event. This is the most important thing we do, by far. We have to understand where we came from, right, to know where we're going. I hope you all enjoyed your evening. Thank you very much. Congratulations to all the inductees.
Thanks, Michael. We appreciate it. So how this is going to work is every nominee has someone that's going to speak on their behalf. So we're going to announce the winner, and then who's speaking on their behalf, and I'll come up and speak for them. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And the first award we'd like to present is a Lifetime Achievement Award for an administrator, and that's to Marty Anderson. Introducing and discussing Marty is Joe Ross.
So being a coach, I usually project too, so Michael, you can hear me. The only posthumous award of the evening, and it's truly unfortunate. It is with great joy and sadness, and a special honor for me to introduce our first Nebraska Hall of Fame inductee for 2021. Full name, Marsha Mcclure Anderson. None of us knew her by those names. She's known and loved as Marty Anderson. Great sadness because she's no longer with us. She passed from cancer in 2019. Great joy because she was a strong leader and she would have loved to see her daughter be inducted this evening and would have been more proud of that than the fact that she is on this podium as well. Marty was born in Pocatello, Idaho, so you can come from anywhere. In 1944 to Lohr and Mcclure. She grew up a military brat at several towns across the country, eventually landing in Council Bluffs, Iowa. She was born prematurely, which presented several physical challenges to her. A cleft lip and a portion of her lower left leg missing. She wore a prosthetic her entire life. These challenges never stopped this positive bump of energy. Kids, when you're growing up, are often cruel with comments when somebody is different. When teased about her funny leg, Marty answered, "God made me this way, so you shouldn't laugh." She quickly earned the respect and appreciation and love of her classmates. She was a sports fan growing up. She watched her father coach and her brother play baseball. She loved to swim. She was a dancer and a cheerleader. She made the varsity cheerleading squad at her high school, Thomas Jefferson High, right across the river, with a prosthetic leg. Marty attended Omaha University. We now know it as UNO. She earned an undergraduate and master's in education there. She was a teacher at heart and followed that desire to serve to the Iowa School for the Deaf in Council Bluffs. She later became the principal of ISD. Always the teacher, she led by example, showing that physical limitations are not limitations on your spirit. She felt your drive to succeed was more important than any perceived limitation. At ISD, Marty met and fell in love with Dana Anderson. And I want to pause here for a second and go off script. Especially with administrators, I feel that this award is an award for a couple, because you cannot do the job unless you have somebody that's supporting you, whether that's a guy with a supportive wife, or in this case, a wife with a supportive husband. And Dana was that for Marty, and thank you, Dana, for being that. They married in 1979 and had 3 strong and healthy kids, Tim, Ted, and Meghan. The kids fell in love with soccer at a young age, and soon they tried out for the fledgling Gladiator Soccer Club in Omaha. After a couple of years of always traveling for every practice, and I mean with 3 kids, you know that it's every day, right? They finally moved to Omaha and bought a house close to Tranquility Park. All 3 kids attended Omaha Burke. Probably no Nebraska family has experienced the breadth of success that the Anderson family has, and many of you don't know this. Tim and Ted were both high school state champions. Ted and Tim won multiple club state championships. Ted won the NCAA D2 championship as an assistant coach for UNO. And Meghan outdid both of her brothers. Meghan did not win a high school championship, but she did go on to play at a Division I university down at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, when the vast majority of her teammates were Canadian born. She played right alongside of national team players. She also won a national professional championship with the North Carolina Courage. Ted tried out for the Nebraska Olympic Development Program in the mid-90s, and Meghan did the following year. As Meghan progressed through the process of making the state team, attending regional camp, earning a spot on the Region 2 team, and competing for a spot with the U.S. National Youth Pool, Marty volunteered as team mom, chaperone, team manager, any job that was presented. She learned the challenges of the ODP process, mental as well as physical. When former director of coaching Brett Thompson asked Marty Anderson to use her knowledge of that Meghan's ODP experience to be the Nebraska ODP administrator, she said yes. Here's a key. There's a lot of great soccer moms out there. But just like Michael said, when your kid graduates from soccer, do you still stay? Do you contribute? Marty did. She continued to help, and this is why she's a Hall of Famer. She did not stop. She used her experience to make ODP a great program for all Nebraska soccer players. Marty understood that this program could unite all the soccer players across the state. Omaha, Lincoln, North Platte, across the state. They could play as one. She saw rivals become valued teammates. For Marty, the ODP players from across the state were our kids. Really, they were her kids. This statement was mentioned by several people in discussing Marty's management of the Nebraska ODP teams, coaches, and chaperones. The Anderson family donated the money given at Marty's memorial services to the State Soccer Association to establish a $1,000 scholarship for a boy and $1,000 for a girl to continue their education at the institution of higher learning of their choice. If you'd like to honor Marty Anderson's Hall of Fame induction today, make a donation to that scholarship of whatever amount would be appropriate. I have the form if you need it. There is an ancient Egyptian proverb that states, to speak the name of the dead is to make them live again. I speak the name, Marty Anderson, to the Nebraska State Soccer Hall of Fame. Accepting the award for his mom is her eldest son, Lieutenant Commander Tim Anderson, U.S. Navy, retired.
I just want to say thank you to the association. This type of opportunity doesn't come where your family gets just an opportunity to let someone like this get a little oxygen. It's not often, so thank you. We were talking over at the table here about good stories. What's the best story and what's the most infamous story that you have about Marty Anderson? There's some good ones. I'll give you some of the good ones. We would always remember that no matter where it was, I think it was 8 years old when I started playing soccer in Council Bluffs for Ward and Oil. This was back in the days when the big foam knee pads were du jour. All the way up to state championships at Field 2 at Tranquility or high school stadium where there's thousands of people. Growing up, there were two voices that you could always hear in the stadium, whether it's 10 students or 10 parents or thousands. One was Mike Antoniak, which those of you who know Mike Antoniak, you could probably hear him from space. But the second one was Marty Anderson. And there was like a millisecond when you hear your mom's voice while you're sprinting down the field and there's 4,000 people in the stadium, and you're like, oh God. But I'll say a couple things. That drive that she had, the passion that she learned as a child, she gave to us, and she gave to pretty much every kid that she touched. She made it a gift to have an opportunity to play soccer, a gift to go to ODP, to go on a traveling team. I remember several times when she was threatening me to take that gift away if I wasn't getting my homework done. But I think overall it was really a situation where she realized that the opportunities that we get through soccer are perfect opportunities to learn life lessons, to challenge your kid, to be in a safe environment, to compete, to have compassion for other people. And also, at the end of the day, dust yourself off, learn something from it, shake hands with the kid across the other side, and you're going to be friends with them for the rest of your life. I mean, there's a certain sophomore from Burke High School that I may or may not have hazed a little bit when I was a senior. Lessons learned, right? But again, her dedication to this, I remember, and I'll say this, it's been 30 years since I touched a competitive soccer ball. I remember I would come back on vacations, whether it was from college or in between deployments or wherever I was stationed, and I would come back and my mom would go, oh wait, yeah, we're gonna do something, but I gotta go down to the ODP office, I gotta knock some stuff out. And I was like, great. And I think the key thing is she loved the game. She loved what it gave people. And I think just from her experience as a kid, and sometimes even from us moving from Iowa to the big city of Omaha, Nebraska, and growing into new friendships and things, she realized that these were opportunities to bring some kids together who may be coming from different backgrounds, may be coming from different economic levels, but to give them a chance to compete for it. And so I think that's where her passion was, and just want to thank you all for recognizing that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. And just one minor note, we'll do pictures at the end here with all the inductees tonight, so when you're done, just step over there. So, again, thanks, Tim and Joe. And our next award goes to Marty's daughter. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award for Player, and that's to Meghan Anderson. Congratulations. Introducing Meghan and your brother Ted.
So we have all of these stories that we can tell. I'm going to keep them limited, so they'll be the good ones though. So when we started, and Tim and I tried out for the Gladiator Soccer Club back in the late 80s, and fortunately we both made it, pretty much changed the course of what we were doing as a family. There were no teams for young girls that were 8 and 9 years old. And so the interesting thing is that Meghan had been following us and wanting to be a part of whatever we do. She was one of 3. And so she tried out for a U12 team when she was 8 and made it. She played U12 for 4 years. And fortunately, she had a really good coach by the name of Dana Anderson. The team was not just an average team. 2 of the 4 times that my dad was coaching while they were U12, not only only did they win a state championship, but they made it to a regional semifinal. And this is, for all of us that have been around this for a long time, it's not sliced up into 5 different leagues. It was the best of the best in Region 2. And you had to fight for everything that you had. Meghan wanted to be in every game, pick up basketball games, tackle football games on the Lohr golf course. I still remember her giving this kid a head fake so bad that I think she wanted to beat her up, but that's okay. But we also had a soccer field in our backyard. My dad was gracious enough to go to the hardware store and put a PVC goal together, put a net on the back of it, and these were world-class games in the backyard. She was fortunate enough to play with 3 future All-Staters, Aaron Champenoy, Dave Foster, and myself. And those were the most tenacious games I think I've ever played in. Meghan's 3 years younger than all of us. These games never ended. They only ended because the sun went down. During the U12 Athena during the U12 run, when they made their semifinals run and all that stuff, there was a great game that we played out on field 1, and Meghan was, I believe, 9 years old at the time, and we ended up being in a shootout, and during the shootout, we lost. Meghan was one of the most competitive people, and is one of the most competitive people I know. She felt so bad that she let her team down. She literally threw her gloves down, and we lived in the Knolls, which was just east of there, and all we saw was Meghan just took off. She was small. She wasn't big for her age. She wasn't the fastest kid on her team. And she started running, and she went down into the crevice, and then we started giving up. Okay, she's good. And then she kept on running. She hit the next drainage ditch, and she kept going. I don't know if she made it all the way home or not, but we eventually found her. Chris Perone took over the team in Athena, then turned into Forte at U14. Chris Perone was a tremendous coach and allowed Meghan to be herself. He had a great soccer knowledge, a great soccer base, not only to teach the players that were there to be there, but to take a person and player of this skill level and push them to the next level. The greatest thing about this group is they never lost the state championship during their duration and their timeline of being a team. 16 out of the 17 true players that were on this team ended up playing Division I and Division II soccer, which is really unheard of. And so Athena/Forte actually is one of the most dominant teams that's been around Nebraska soccer. Meghan, of course, then went to Burke High School. She played under Steve Moore. Steve Moore is really a gem of soccer, one of the best coaches that I've been able to work with as well. He knew that Meghan would always work hard. He never had to work for it. I think his concern was just hoping the rest of the team could keep up. Meghan would score with great frequency, but she would never do it to insult. If she would have a few goals in the game, and the game was in hand, she would come out. She wasn't in it for the record. She wasn't scoring 6 and 7 goals a game. She could have. She had a lot to live up to, both of us. Tim and I both had state titles, and she was pushing for her own. And I probably let her know that a few times. Burke was much less talented than many of the top teams, like your Duchesnes, your Marions, and with the help of Becky Preston, which happened to be one of our neighbors, and Jesse Parsons was one of our neighbors on our street, they pushed for a state semifinal, which, with the effort of those 3, was pretty amazing. Meghan made All-State as a freshman, and multiple times she made All-State, but to really put in perspective what she did, she was on the World Herald All-State first team, 25-year team. She was a parade All-American. She made multiple regional teams and national pools. And then, she was always on that list of who's who in Nebraska soccer. Trust me, it was tough to be her brother. But I think the place where she really shined was at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She decided to stay home, which I was surprised with. She had offers from Notre Dame and other top-level schools, and she decided to stay with John Walker. At the time, John was carrying multiple Canadian national team players. We're not talking like national pool players, but players that were consistently on the national team, and really ran the lines down at practices. And Meghan knew that she had to earn everything that she was going to get. So, to put this in perspective with all of this, She did anything that she could. Freshman year, Ray Leone came in with the University of Clemson. Nebraska had 3 goalkeepers. One was already had a torn ACL, and in a matter of minutes, they lost goalkeeper 2 and number 3. And Coach Walker looked down at the bench. Meghan happened to be on the bench and said, "You play basketball, you want to get in?" And she got in. Within the first minute or two, there was a ball that went into the box. I don't know how this happened, but she dove in head first, got the ball, and took a deep breath and said, "I thought she was going to die." And she did not, and ended up playing 3 games of goal for him. But to really put this in perspective of what Meghan left as an impression on the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Meghan not only played in 94 games, she started all of them. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln, the only other person, and this is actually a pretty cool thing, Becky Preston actually played in 94 games as well. That means that they would go deep into the national tournament, final 8s, final 16s, and she started every single one of them. But here's the thing that is even better than that. She averaged a goal or an assist or more in each one of them. She ended up with 146 points. She's second all time on their points list. She's the only midfielder on the list. Meghan, at the point in time when she hit 40-40, which is 40 goals and 40 assists, she was only the 29th player in NCAA history to do so. She was 2 goals away from 50-50, and only 5 players had it at that point in time. Meghan made multiple all-conference and all-conference tournament teams. She'd eventually be an All-American and 2-time Missouri Athletic Club National Player of the Year finalist. And these are quotes from John Walker. Meghan is one of the hardest working players we have. She's the first to practice and the last to leave. One of the best stories that John has of Meghan during her senior year is the fact that they were playing Oklahoma State. They're up 3-1. And Meghan was up off the bench. She'd already come out for the rest of the game. And she was yelling at the other team to kick the ball out so freshmen could get into the game. Yeah. She cared about her teammates that much, and that's really what set her apart from a lot of the people that I've been around and have coached, because you have a lot of players that really understand the game, they understand what they want out of it, but the inclusion of others was a big part of it. After UNO, Meghan was drafted 20th in the WUSA draft and played for Carolina Courage for a few years. She was able to win a WUSA League title. She played a couple of years for the Courage, and that was the end of her career. The coolest thing, though, as far as legacy is concerned, there's 2 parts of this. The first one is, I started dating my wife while Meghan was still playing, and the question she always asked me was, don't people always score off the corner kicks? Because she did it so frequently, or their team would score. I'm like, no, we really don't. But the one that really hit home to me was when I was coaching at UNO, and we would take players on tours, and we'd show them dorm rooms. We had these great dorm rooms and all this stuff. And I looked at one of our freshmen who brought in a poster of the 2001 Nebraska soccer team. And I said, "Hey, Lohr, why do you have this poster up?" And she goes, "Well, I saw this girl Meghan play. She's from Nebraska, and she's the reason why I'm here." Meghan defined what's great about the game. Gritty, humble, never the fastest, never the strongest, never the tallest, but she was the best player. She just wanted to give her best in every game, and she loved her team for whatever they could give her, while she maximized what she gave them. I'm lucky because I was the one that got to have a front row seat. Congratulations. Come on up. This is it.
Hello, everyone. This will not be the easiest thing to get through, as you can imagine. Having my mom inducted tonight, probably similar to what Ted was saying. means more to me than anything, that the state would recognize her. So I'm grateful to the Nebraska State Soccer Association through and through for recognizing her work. I think the team player aspect of who I am is greatly founded in her. My brother Ted had a front row seat the entire time. I don't think there was a minute that I wasn't on his shoulder. And that was playing football games out on the golf course, playing pickup games. When I see his friends, they were kind of my brothers too. And they pushed me, and they really did make me into the person that I was. And all the things that he mentioned, I will tell you that he was a foundation, my dad and Ted, coaching me when I was young. Dad actually had us play rugby games, because that's what he did. So at practice, we would warm up by playing rugby. That was before parents stayed at practice. I don't know what parent would think that would be okay now, but we did. And when my brother mentions that all those girls went on to play, I really think that toughness came from those years of Dad and Ted coaching. I still work with student athletes now, and I tell some of the boys some lessons along the way that I've learned. They know none of this, by the way. But I often share the story of my brother showing up and what that means to show up. And when Ted was down at Nebraska, he would still drive 45 minutes to an hour for my high school practices. And a lot of that was to push me. He would put on his cleats and have a go at me, you know. We'd run the hills, and he was making sure that someone was still feeding me. And he was making sure that I still was going to push myself. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for my family, Lohr down at Nebraska, going on runs in the off season. My mom, I can still tell you exactly where she sat at every single game. And during warm-ups, I would take a glance to make sure that she was there. Tim, I traveled across the country for different events. And when I was in California, it did not matter what part of California I was in, Tim was going to drive there. And it meant the world to me, because anytime I was away from my club team, it was the hardest thing. I loved my club team and the girls that I played with so much that going to these regional camps and national camps were the hardest thing for me to do, because they weren't there with me, and I never ever wanted to separate myself out from them because they meant the world to me. But Tim would show up, and he'd be there and give me a big hug afterwards, and I was very grateful that no matter where I went on this journey, my family was there with me. I want to thank all the coaches. Ted mentioned many of them. Perone was unbelievable. I mean, he said exactly those things to me. You are not the fastest. You will never be the fastest. And stop comparing yourself to other people. And it really switched in my brain that I only compete with myself and nobody else. Because I think up to that point, I was always worried that that was going to hold me back. John Walker, truly can never say enough. Both Perone and John allowed me to be who I was. And I will forever be grateful for that. And I just want to make sure everyone knows the immense pride I had in being from Nebraska. I still have a 402 cell phone number. I haven't lived here for 15, 20 years. I have immense pride in the state. And when Ted said he was shocked I went there, I was too, but I went on a visit and I said I have to stay here. I wanted to represent something that was much bigger than just playing in a game, and that was truly representing Nebraska. When we went on these events, we were underestimated as a club team always, and I laughed. because I knew we were good. We were always underestimated, playing Ohio South and Illinois and different places. But I knew that we were great. So I thank everyone here tonight. I thank my family, and I appreciate all of you coming and supporting Nebraska soccer. So thank you.
Thanks, Meghan. Our next nominee or award winner is a Lifetime Achievement Award for coach and founder, and that's Susie Dugan. Introducing on behalf of Susie is Lohr County.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer County, and I'm the daughter of the Lifetime Achievement Coach and Founder Award recipient, Susie Dugan. My parents, Pat and Susie Dugan, have 4 children. I'm the oldest daughter, and my sister Debbie, and our 2 brothers, Patrick and Matthew. She has 15 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. That's the one running around out there. When soccer started in Nebraska, it was a time when girls' sports were not a priority. We are so proud of our mom who fought for our rights to play. She never gave up on making soccer a powerhouse sport that is still strong and growing today. This award is so meaningful to our family to have our mom recognized for all she has done for the game of soccer. Our mom had absolutely no background in athletics, but true to her integrity and persistence, she self-taught and was an incredible coach. At a time when there was no Google, she read book after book to help her become the best coach possible. She strived to get the best out of her players, showed them the love of the game, how to be a team player, and how to stand up for the sport and themselves. She encouraged her players to win graciously and lose with dignity. She was a mentor to so many young girls. Our mom is so humble that she doesn't even know her win-loss record, but we can tell you she always had a winning record and won many championships, including Okoboji tournaments that she helped found. When she coached varsity at Marion, the teams won 4 state titles under the old system. She also coached numerous club teams to many titles. After my sister and I left Marion, she continued to coach various freshman and JV teams for many seasons. Thank you to Joe Rock for keeping the history of our sport and always being an advocate. Our mom was a trailblazer. At the time when there were not many female coaches, she didn't think twice but to lead the way. Susie Dugan is a person of integrity and the highest moral standards possible. She was dedicated to her players and to the game of soccer. We are so proud of our mom. She is so deserving of this award. I welcome Susie Dugan.
Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you to the Nebraska State Soccer Association, Joe Roth, and all who have worked so hard to make this evening such a nice event. I am sincerely grateful for this incredible honor. Thank you. And I want to congratulate my fellow honorees, Marty and Meghan Anderson, Peter Kassay-Farkas, Robert Lohr, Linda Wilson, and Herman Weist. It is truly an honor to be in such great company. Over 40 years ago, my 2 daughters came home from school one day and said that they wanted to sign up for soccer. I had no idea what soccer was. I was never at all an athletic person, but they were persistent. So my husband Pat and I agreed that they could play, and then it wasn't long before the kids came home and said they had to have a coach and couldn't play. So Pat said he would try, but he traveled a lot, so I said I would assist him. And that made two of us who knew nothing. In those days, before Google, all I could do was go find books. I went to the library, I went and bought books, and I really tried to stay maybe a chapter ahead of my team. That's about all I could do. And so I was usually on the field at that time, trying to give instructions to the team while holding my youngest son, Matthew, on my hip and trying to keep my other son, Patrick, happy and out of the creek at Trentwood Park. I truly enjoyed coaching soccer at the club level, and I continued coaching as the kids went on to high school. Soccer was not a sanctioned sport at the time back then, but we knew our kids wanted to play the game representing their high school. So many soccer coaches worked together for several years to get soccer sanctioned as a high school sport here in Nebraska. At first, some athletic directors fought our efforts and were very cool to the idea. We were sometimes met with comments such as, "Soccer? That's a communist plot to ruin football." But coaches in soccer and supporters from Omaha and Lincoln, we traveled all through the state talking to parents, talking to coaches, and trying to get some support for high school soccer. And it wasn't hard in coming. We had an awful lot of happy young parents and coaches who would come out and say, "We'll do what we can here." So players and parents and coaches and athletic directors, school administrators, and many others worked really hard for several years to get soccer sanctioned by the Nebraska School Activities Association. And I'm so delighted that in the end, towards the end of the 1980s, that actually happened, and we started getting our first statewide championships. And since only teachers could officially be coaches in Nebraska, I was then very happy to just be an assistant and to help wherever I could around the program. And now in retirement, I am so pleased and grateful to see so many good, hardworking players and coaches and administrators actively supporting both club and high school level. And I thank you very, very much for this incredible honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Our next award winner is a Lifetime Achievement Award winner as a coach, and that's Peter Kassay-Farkas. Introducing him is R.K. Piper.
Okay, well, before I begin my introductory remarks, I just want to make a point of how special Coach Farkas and playing for him has been to so many. 20 of his former players from 45 to 50 years ago, some flying in from as far as Florida and Las Vegas, gathered last night at the Greek Isles and tonight here to salute, honor, and wish him well. Although I do have to admit that one of those former players thought that Coach was being indicted tonight rather than inducted. Bill Jackson, thank you for still keeping the team rolling. In March 1939, Dr. Paul Kassay-Farkas of Hungary married Hedwig Pokorny of Austria. For historical reference, the next month, Germany invaded Poland to start World War II. And 9 months after that marriage, she gave birth to their first child, Peter Kassay-Farkas, in Transylvania, which is today in Romania. Peter began playing soccer shortly thereafter at age 4 during the war in Austria with a Fetzen ball. In German, that's a ball made of knotted rags. As his father, a medical doctor in the Hungarian army, was being captured and held prisoner in the infamous Dachau concentration camp in Germany. After the war, the family migrated to U.S. through Ellis Island in 1951, settling in Connecticut where Pete played high school soccer, and returned to Vienna, Austria in 1958, where he attended pre-med junior college for 4 years. Returning to Cleveland, Ohio, where his parents had settled, Peter attended John Carroll University, where he captained the first varsity soccer team for 2 years, playing center halfback, until graduating in 1966. He also played club soccer in Cleveland, where he learned the fine art of goalkeeping, playing for Greek and captaining German teams. After graduating from John Carroll, he again returned to Austria and attended the University of Graz Medical School for nearly 4 years, obtaining his Austrian referee license during that time, until he decided being an MD like his father was not the life for him. He returned to Cleveland with his wife Joni in 1970 and was immediately hired by Bristol Myers as pharmaceutical representative, being transferred to Omaha the following year, in 1981. He sought out soccer in Omaha immediately, first noticing high school youth practicing at Lewis and Clark Junior High, and believed that they were as skilled as the youth he was familiar with in Ohio and would be competitive with them. In the fall of 1971, the Omaha Huskers under-19 team was formed, drawing the best players from Omaha Westside, Burke, Rummel, now Roncalli, Benson, Bryan, and Brownell Talbot, to be the first youth team to represent Nebraska in a national competition. Peter was initially invited to coach the goalkeepers by Nebraska Soccer Hall of Famer Klaus Preuss, one of the several founding fathers and Nebraska State Association officials organizing and preparing the team, which incidentally, that first day of practice was the luckiest day of my life, as Peter would eventually teach me, Klaus, I'm doing what you do usually, teach me everything I ever learned to know about goalkeeping. He soon became the head coach for the game to be played against the Illinois State champions in Chicago, where the Huskers lost 5-0 on a wet, partially frozen, muddy field, giving up 5 goals in the first half. Also on this trip, I must confess, I was among the first half dozen or so Nebraska youth players from Nebraska to sneak out of a hotel at night to ride the L train around downtown Chicago. The following year, the Huskers won the second of 3 consecutive state championships and hosted the Kansas champion at Westside Field, defeating them 4-1. Then shocking the Midwest regional soccer powers by defeating Milwaukee, Wisconsin champs 1-0 on Millard High School field. The team then traveled to St. Louis to face the Missouri perennial powerhouse Club Seco, where Philip Bangura nephew of the iconic Creighton coach Paul Bangborough, scored first to silence a large crowd of local supporters. Soon after employing some of the skills Coach Farkas drilled into me, I recall going full stretch to tip a powerful shot around the post, causing more consternation among the St. Louis loyalists. Some of our fans recall in the crowd wondering, who the hell are these guys from Nebraska? To put a finer point on that, well, eventually, after trailing for 30 minutes, Seco found their game, dispatching the Huskers 6-1. But the players had shown that Nebraska youth could compete with any teams in the U.S. And just to put a little finer point on that statement, between 1960 and 1979, St. Louis teams had won 15 out of 20 USSFA under-19 junior amateur McGuire Cups. One of the St. Louis players I read on live, said at the time, once you got through the St. Louis teams, beating anyone else in the country was a piece of cake. So anyway, after hosting another St. Louis team in the competition the following year in 1974, we hosted them here in Omaha. Former core Husker players, led by Ron Hebrew, Ron, raise your hand, formed the first club team at UNO, which often played the club team at Creighton. Ron recruited Coach Farkas to again train and lead them there, which Coach did for the next 25 years until retiring in 1999. The first UNO teams were highly successful, combining the former Husker players with the soccer talents of European, African, Middle Eastern, South American, and Canadian students. At the time, UNO staff and team assistants were instrumental in forming the Northern State Soccer Conference, which included teams such as Dordt, Morningside, Northwestern, Westmar, Mount Marty, Augustana, and South Dakota State, all of which now have varsity or sanctioned programs, with UNO winning 7 championships between 1974 and 1983. In those days, graduate students were allowed to play college club soccer, and I was fortunate to play for UNO against Creighton the first 2 years after they turned varsity here in Omaha. And they had several high school All-American scholarship players, losing 1-0 before a locally televised and large crowd at Rosenblatt Stadium in the first Omaha Mayor's Cup. Creighton also defeated UNO 2-1 the following year in a return match at UNO's Al Caniglia Field. Finally, after graduating from UNO, many of Coach Farkas' core players formed the Dortmunder Soccer Club, competing in the Omaha Soccer Division, winning 5 consecutive state championships, and representing Nebraska in 3 USSF National Amateur Tournaments in Midwest Region 2, held in Minneapolis, Detroit, and finally Cleveland. Playing those games at the German Donnerschwaben club facility, Pete's old club in Cleveland, when he lived there in the 1960s. During those games, people who played and remembered Peter from those days came up to the Nebraska players and asked and inquired about their old captain, friend, and star player. As Joe Roth pointed out to me then and there, and just recently last night, in the soccer world, everyone and everything is connected. With that being said, is my great honor to introduce to you, now living in Atlanta, Georgia since 2007, a guy who's been my coach, mentor, and best friend for 50 years now, Coach Peter Kassay-Farkas.
Hi guys, very short. I'm glad RK spoke before me because he covered everything I wanted to say. So, thank you very much, RK. It was a lot of fun. And I too want to congratulate the past recipients of this great award and this year's recipients. And are going to join me for future get-togethers like this, I hope. And by the way, the first thing I want to tell you, RK, now I know why we lost 5-0. You guys were driving around in Chicago at 11 o'clock at night. Come on, man.
He didn't know that, so
He's a smart guy, isn't he? Well, the other thing here is, you mentioned all these guys, and look at them all. All of them here, they look pretty fit. And I think I could put another team together. The only problem, I didn't bring enough ibuprofen. Because I know we all are taking some. About, you never know, maybe next time. I was asked to come up with some small anecdotes, and I call them mind clips. And so I'm going to mention like 3 or 4 of them. Some of you guys remember them. Some of you never heard of them. And some of them, I don't know what I'm talking about. But we'll go. First of all, as you know, he already mentioned that with the McGuire Cup, Nebraska is the only state to ever host the under-19 McGuire Cup competition 3 times in a row, 79, 80, and 81. Pretty good achievement for those guys, some old timers that were part of that. And one of the reasons they came back is because we were also the only state that made any money for the USSF, United States Soccer Federation. Can you imagine, this is 1979, 2,000 to 2,500 fans at UNO Stadium. 2 days over the weekend. Watching in the first year, local boy from Bellevue on the San Diego championship team. So I always think back, that was the beginning of today when the pros won their championship. So it was a pretty great start for us. Another achievement the under-19 team played, they played in the Cowboy Stadium in Arlington, I think it was Arlington, Texas, right? A pre-game for the Olympic team playing the Tornadoes. And guess what? These kids never played in that kind of an atmosphere. 5,000 to 7,000 people watched them. It's pretty cool in 1979, 80. What? That's 2. I knew I had to put my glasses on. That's right, it's right, 72. Excellent.
It wasn't cool, it was hot.
Was it? Yeah, you know, interesting sideline. That's the weekend my first kid was born. And her name was Jennifer. And thank goodness it wasn't a boy. Because I would have had to call him Dallas. You know. But the other thing I thought of in 1973, the Huskers, I think you mentioned that, but we finished 5th. We were the last eliminated team in the round robin championship in St. Louis. He mentioned that we won. But you remember what Susan said, that nobody knew of Nebraska. Who's Nebraska? They come into South Dakota or what, you know? Well, we showed them, you know, the first time we were in that competition, you know, we did pretty well. Second year, even better. We also had the first youth team to travel within an 18-month period. Imagine this is again about that time, what was it, 72 and 3. We played in 7 different states. In Missouri, Texas, Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, and South Dakota. And guess what? The moms and dads had to drive in most of those cases. You know, that's a lot of traveling for kids that really didn't have any part-time jobs because they didn't have time. They had to practice to win games, you know. So the other thing I found here, if you ever remember, UNO started soccer clinics. And we had them for about 4 or 5 years till it was taken over by UNO Athletic Department. And one of the years, which I think I have to look here, was 1979. That was, we had 3 weeks of clinics, 450 players participated, and 45 coaches. Klaus was one of them, and Ron was one of them. We had a variety of foreign coaches. Guy came that I knew from Austria came over and helped out. Were British coaches. Joe was part of it, several years. We had referees part of it, because I think a lot of the coaches now have that same kind of setup. We have little clinics with about 12 coaches, and you work about 15, 20 minutes, a certain skill or knowledge about soccer. But just think, 1979, 450. And I was thinking when Meghan got inducted, I wonder if she went to one of those, because you'd be around. You remember going to any of those summer clinics? Yeah, I was, because I had to sign every one of the certificates that I handed out, and that name Meghan, sort of, I remembered in my, I asked Joe, I think, or someone, you sure she wasn't going to that clinic? I thought you might have gone.
We have pictures that you can.
But I couldn't recognize any of people on those pictures. You guys were all like 7 to 14, you know? It's kind of tough. Let me see what else I got noted down here, other than thanking everybody. So sort of have a close here. You know, one of the important parts of thanking people always is my family. Mark and Jennifer. I spent a lot of hours with you guys, and I wasn't available. But they supported me anyway. My wife, Joni, who for 20 years washed the uniforms of the team. And I'll tell you why she did that. The first time the guys took their shirts home, we had white uniforms. Guess what? Half of the team came back pink. I said, that ain't gonna fly. So Joni volunteered. After 20 years of washing those jerseys, A, we never lost one, and none of them faded, which is kind of good. Of course, last but not least, in order to be successful as a coach, you have to thank the players. And I do want to mention the guys that are here tonight. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, and you already heard Joe Roth, R.K. Piper, Ron Hebrew, Greg Sellers and his brother. Well, those are the 2 guys that flew in, I think, from Vegas and Utah. Dr. Bob Muehlman, Dr. John Buckley, Jim Houston, Mark Fickle, and John McFadden. I haven't seen him maybe even more than 50 years. Because I used to hide out in this shop where when I needed a rest from all this coaching. It was a really nice, quiet office, and I said, hey, Mark, I'm going to take 5. That's where I used to go. And of course, the brother, your brother's in here, Jackson and Ryan. Actually, today, Jackson, Bill, gave me back my $5 that I gave him to buy a Coke when we played in South Dakota. And he didn't even pay the interest. Who? I haven't now, didn't you say it? Again, I gotta use my glasses. But anyway, not only a great player, but an old friend, Dan Surlett, we call him Slate, because he was always running around with a protector on his nose because he broke it every other game. And of course, you guys for nominating me and in the whole soccer association for the Olympic committee and the Olympic, but nominating committee for putting us in this position to win the award. One last thing I want to say, because they won, we won, Omaha won. I have on this paper predicted the final score of the game. Ask RK, right? 3-0. They won tonight, 3-0. And so it's got to be a good year for soccer. Ted Lasso, the show. You got to see that? Hey, they won all the Emmys. And what's the show about? Crazy soccer players, right? We won, Omaha won the championship. Not only the cup, but the league, or the playoff of the league, right? And hey, I got myself a nice little memo for the rest of my life. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. Our next award is a Lifetime Achievement Award, and it goes to referee and founder Robert Lohr. Introducing him is Scott Lohr.
Wow, so much history in this room. Listening to the stories and brings back a lot of memories for me too. Just want to thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Scott Lohr. I'm Bob Lohr's oldest son. Thanks for the opportunity to let me speak tonight. It's a great honor for my dad and my entire family. We're all so proud of this. We're grateful for the recognition of his dedication to soccer and all. My first memory of being involved with soccer was when my dad took me to Hitchcock. We met with some youth soccer folks at that time in Omaha, and he heard about this from Klaus Boyce, who we worked with at the time. That night, we met with Richard Kassay-Farkas and John Tapper, that many of you know. They played Omaha men's soccer league at the time on weekends. They wanted to start a youth soccer program here in Omaha. That was about 1971. I was on one of the first youth soccer teams in Omaha. That was the start of it all for the youth. And my dad became a fan at that time. My dad educated himself and learned about soccer from talking with people, reading books, helping out with practices, and talking with everybody that he could on the sidelines, and just watching the game. In 1973, John, Richard, and my dad started United Soccer Club. They had iconic black and white jerseys, if you remember, much like the pink ones you were talking about. There was only 2 teams at that time. My dad served as general manager for the United Soccer Club. We called Seymour Smith our home field. At that time, it was just developed by the Omaha Parks and Recreation, and would soon become the iconic United Soccer Club fields. The fields were in terrible shape. Oftentimes the ground was uneven, there was rock covered them. They mowed them every once in a while, so most of the parents went down there with their own lawnmowers and mowed the fields. It was not a high priority for the Parks and Recreation back then to mow soccer fields at all. My dad started coaching the United Lions in 1973. We moved to Millard in 1975 and spent endless miles driving up and down Harrison was a gravel road at the time, which ended at the gravel, or the pavement ended at 74th Street. We spent many, many nights at Seymour Smith, often with practices ending with parents turning on their car headlights so we could still see. At one time, my brother, my sister, and myself all played soccer until my sister took a ball in the face and ended her soccer career her quick. My dad coached my brother for United and myself with the Millard Stars during the off season for the Millard Soccer Club at the time when we were in high school. My dad refereed soccer on weekends for both youth and men's senior leagues. For many years, my dad was an iconic figure in the field. Many people called him the Cliff Clavin of soccer. Around 1983, the state referee started the National Intercollegiate Soccer Association, official association, and he became the treasurer at that time. Throughout his refereeing career, my dad officiated many games at all levels, youth, college, both men's and senior leagues. He's been presented with numerous awards, medals, trophies throughout his many years of refereeing. He was bestowed an award by the association for his 23 years of dedication to the sport. But tonight he will receive his highest honor, a lifetime achievement. My dad now supports his grandsons and granddaughters from sidelines and in the stands and in feeder seats. He's always been there for the family, and he even sometimes critiques the soccer referees. So my dad's made it full circle. Started as a fan, then as an administrator, coach, on to being a referee, and then back to a fan. Special thanks to Nancy Gallagher for nominating my dad for the Lifetime Achievement for all of his sacrifices, time, and commitment to the Omaha soccer community. Love you, Dad.
I'm not a speaker, and I don't have no red and yellow cards, so I'll try. To everyone, Nebraska Soccer Association, I thank you very much for this honor. I want to thank my wife. She died 6 years ago, but she had a lot to do with soccer. Washing clothes and all that, delivering the kids to the field. And my family, they're all here. Everybody's here, and I appreciate them and their support. I have two people I like to thank. They're both from Germany. One was Klaus Royce, and the other was John Capper. They're both honorees, and they helped me learn the game of soccer, what it was about. I have two other people that are past that helped me to ref. One is Mike Brickman, and one is Bob Wright Sr., and they were great teachers for me. I'd like to thank another person who did so much for soccer in Omaha, Bill Fang. People remember Bill. He did very much for everybody. He started with the United Soccer Club, but he worked his butt off, and he died a very young person, but he was very good for Omaha and Nebraska soccer, period. I'm very grateful for being selected, and there's very many people that are deserving of this, and I'm very joyed, and I'm very happy that I'm part of it. With my joy of seeing popularity of the sport, the acceptance of it in different areas of the state, and the greatest satisfaction is going by these soccer fields and seeing these little kids playing. Thank you, and I appreciate this honor. Thank you very much.
founder, Herman Weist. Introducing him will be Robert Brink.
Good evening. I want to congratulate all the honorees tonight. Almost all of them. They're all deserving. And the committee has done a great job of selecting people and selecting some of the most meritorious people for these various honors. I solicited a number of comments from other people, and probably the most significant comments can be summarized into three main principles. The first one, when you make these sorts of presentations, make sure you start off with a strong beginning. Secondly, make sure you end up with a strong conclusion. And third, make those two run together as much as you can. I asked Herman about how he got started in coaching. I guess all the credit goes to his wife Ellen, because Herman's answer was, Ellen signed me up and I got started. And he's done a great job for Nebraska soccer in general. I think the timeline was the mid-70s. But he has been a coach and an administrator, etc., at various levels, including club soccer at Cassay, league soccer at CYSL, and state soccer through the Nebraska State Soccer Association. I've known Herman since the Pius Leo days, certainly known very well through CYSL, and the various comments that I solicited had two main things. Herman enjoys the respect and admiration of everyone because of his sense of fairness and trying to make sure that everybody gets a fair shake. And the second one is his hard work. Herman's experience was similar to what Susie Dugan described. Is when he was getting started, he bought a bunch of books and started studying. And of course, he spent time and effort so that he has ended up doing a great job for his team and the various organizations he was associated with, and a great job for Nebraska soccer in general. Along with his many accomplishments, he's spent the time and effort to obtain 3 levels of USYSL or USYSA coaching licenses. He's selected as the Nebraska Girls Coach of the Year in the late 1980s. He's a former president of Pius Leo Soccer Club, president of CYSL. He led the development of St. Leo's soccer fields, and he served as treasurer of Nebraska soccer for a number of years, and has done just a tremendous job in all of those from my perspective. There is one blemish on that record. And that is, Herman tells me he ended up in a red car on one occasion. I keep checking, I can't find any real record of that, but I'm taking it as it. He's been very much involved with his children, obviously, in youth soccer, including his daughter Ann, who is now inducted into this Hall of Fame. And he has encouraged the involvement of all of his family, including his daughter Ann and his grandson, Max, who's in the referee program. So it is with particular pride that Herman enjoys being, in my opinion, to my knowledge, he and his daughter Ann are the only parent-child combination that I'm aware of in the Hall of Fame, and very much deserving of so. As a soccer coach, if you study hard enough, you can kind of figure out how this game ought to be played. But the most important piece of being a coach is to foster love of the sport. And Herman excels at that. And the other big item is he's fair to everybody. There are some real challenges to be fair to recreational players as well as competitive players. And I've observed Herman in that capacity and see myself and at the state level. And the great thing about Herman Weist is that he enjoys the respect of everyone he deals with. His personal attributes are embodied in what I've already talked about. In addition to being an excellent coach, he's just a fine person. I've known and worked with Herman for probably 20 years. That sounds about right. And he treats everybody with dignity and respect, and tries to make sure he's being fair. So it is a great pleasure to speak on behalf of Herman and his induction into his Hall of Fame. He's somebody that I've known and respected for a long time. Maybe the best way I can sum it up, Herman's a guy you can leave town and leave your house key with and never have to worry about anything. So, congratulations, Herman, and you're up.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to the committee and all who helped me get this nomination. I'm humbled by it, and I truly appreciate it. I got involved in soccer years ago. I knew nothing about soccer, and I worked at my office. I called home to find out what time we were eating. So I called up and said, we're eating at 6 o'clock. No, she said, a couple of kids have soccer practices, and so we won't be eating until about 7 o'clock. And I said, this is the most disruptive thing that has happened to our family. And years later, I was kind of repeating that, and Ellen said, said, no, the most disruptive thing for our family was when you got into soccer. I go back as far as remembering 5 and 6 year old kids playing 11 versus 11 on a 100-yard field. And that is really a sight to see. 20 short legs trying to push the soccer ball 100 yards. I'd say the soccer community has come a long ways from those days. And so, on behalf of myself, and I could go on, but I'm sure we all want to get home tonight, so I'm going to call it quits. Thank you.
Thank you, Herman. And our next and final award winner is a Lifetime Achievement Award winner as a coach, and that's Linda Wilson. Introducing our Ben and Jenny Wilson.
We're the last ones here, so you're almost there. Our mom is amazing. I really had the pleasure of coaching with her for a couple of years. We coached Southeast soccer for a little while together. Coached my sister's team. I was a player also, and really focused on winning. Mom really focused on getting the players to grow as people. And I think that's a lot of what's missing in the world, and that you have to really feed the people side of things, not just the ability side. And Mom did an amazing job of that. Just looking at her past players that she's had, they've all ended up very well. They're all very good friends. She's had some just amazing accomplishments. And Jen's going to go into this.
Yes. Okay, so my mom has coached 4 years for YMCA soccer from 1st to 4th grade, 16 years with the Capital Soccer Association boys and girls from U12 to U19, 20 years as Lincoln Southeast High School coach, assistant coach for ODP boys, Shrine soccer coach, assistant coach for Nebraska Wesleyan University, produced 4 one-hour shows on coaching for public television. She's a holder of an F certificate and a C national coaching license. And she's the first woman in the nation to coach a boys high school soccer team that won state. And not only was she a coach, but she's very heavy in the administration side of soccer. She was the chair for YMCA Youth Sports, secretary and president for Capital Soccer Association, secretary and president for Nebraska State Soccer Association, co-chair for USYSA Region 2 Regional Tournament, soccer sport director for Cornerstone State Games, sub-regional director 2A for USYSA, mediation dispute resolution for USYSA, because there's a lot of fighting going on there. Some of the awards that she has won is the Sertoma Service to Mankind, Nebraska State Soccer Boys Coach of the Year, Region 2 Boys Coach of the Year, KFOR Coach of the Year, and Lincoln Southeast High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Speaking personally, it's an honor for her to be my mom. It's very rare as a child, especially a female, to grow up and have such a great mentor in your own mother. To see her crash down barriers that were in place for women, made it easier for me to do what I wanted to do. Since I saw her being able to do everything that typically male to do, it didn't put up any gates for me.
Here's our mom.
Okay, I gotta warm my knee up first.
Good evening. There's something nice about being the last speaker and knowing that this is over at 9 o'clock, so we can know right away it's going to be pretty quick. I have to be honest, I'm accepting this award under false pretenses because all I did was have a lot of fun. And I guess if you have a lot of fun for long enough, they give you an award for it, so I appreciate that. Thank you to Nebraska State Soccer Association, something that's always been near and dear to my heart. Thank you to the nominating committee. I appreciate it, and my family is honored by your nomination. When you receive something like this, it causes you to look back, as I'm sure happened with all the award winners, and all of the people who's touched your life over a span of 30 years, and realizing that you're all linked together. And it's not one person receiving this, it's all of the people that have shared in your life. And rather than list all of them, I'm going to go to the big three. The first person that I think about is Deb Satchel, who was the director of youth sports for the Wild. She's the one who called me on the phone and said, your son Josh does not have a coach for his soccer team, and he's not going to be able to play unless we find one. Can you do me a favor if I give you a list and call all the dads and see who might be interested in being coach? So I said, well, sure. So I hung up the phone, and then I thought about it. So I called her back, and I said, well, how about if a mom wanted to be the coach of the team? Again, as so many of you said, I knew nothing about soccer. I knew that I loved being outdoors. I knew I loved kids. I knew Ben played for a couple of years, so I kind of had an idea there was a ball involved. But, you know, I had never paid that much attention. So she said, sure. So I signed up. Well, that meant I had 22 young first graders to show up. So I had to figure something out. Well, our librarian in Lincoln had one little volume of coaching soccer. That became my Bible. Now I understand first graders, as we know nowadays, you know, but that's what we did. So one practice, once a week, one ball, 22 players, first graders. I had to go back to what our kindergarten teacher was doing with theirs and split them up. Got a lot of parents involved, and we started rotating the kids around to all the different. Well, everything went well until we hit our first game. Well, picture this, okay, we're at Lewis Park. There are, for goals, there are corner flags, 11 on one side, 11 on the other, referee in the middle with a soccer ball, places the soccer ball down, steps back, blows his whistle, and goes like this. The 22 players looked at each other and said, what? Well, we forgot to tell them how to start the game. But we went on from there. But that was a start. And I've always felt that if you're going to do something, you better darn well do the best you can. And I owed it to those kids, and I owed it to all the kids over the years to be the best that I could be. I've never played the game. They were at that disadvantage, but I was the best that they could get. And so I did whatever I could. And you know what? I had fun every step of the way. And to me, it's like, if you're not having fun,
you better not be doing it. And that's kind of been my philosophy all along. When I have players come back to me after years and said, you know, we had a blast, I'm saying, yes, that's what it was about. That's what it was about. The second person who was part of the big three is a previous inductee, Mcmaster. She was on my list, and my gosh, she was sitting at the table. Because after 4 years of the Y, we were ready to kind of move on, spread our wings, see the bigger field. And Eric at that time was starting with soccer in Lincoln, and had been for a couple years, and he was involved with getting teams up, getting coaches up to Omaha to come to the clinics. And so with Bruce Skinner, and John Walsh, and Joe Roth, and Don Klosterman running the clinics, that was our first introduction, right, to what we're supposed to be doing. And they had to understand on how to run it. So we tried to, you know, we learned everything we could, but we kind of tried to stay in the background if we could. So thank you, Eric, because that really got me to feel like maybe I had some knowledge about things. And the third of the big three is my late husband. And the reason that he's part of this is because every step of the way, no matter what I did, I would say, well, we're talking about maybe having me run for president of this, or how about if I coach this team, or what if I did this? And he was behind me 100%. Go for it. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And I don't think without that support, I don't think we could have. You know, because it is. It's like many of you said. It's a group effort. It's not just one person, it's everybody involved. So on behalf of everybody, I want to thank you very much for this honor. We will treasure it always. Thank you.
As we wrap up, just a couple housekeeping items. We'd like all the award winners tonight to, we can step over there and take pictures. We'd like to get the class for a picture, and then families want to take pictures, they can. And then just to kind of finish this off, I want to say thanks to Crystal and Molly for helping put this together. I think if you guys do the work that went into this and what they did, especially during State Cup, while she's also running State Cup and this time of year. So now time on time, I feel like we're stocking gaps and week after week after week. So I think that's a tribute to the work that you guys. And then lastly, I'll just again say we're inspired and we're amazed, and you have our promise and our commitment that we'll keep telling the story and keep trying to communicate that what came before us is what's made today possible. So I wish we could put it into better words and then we could do more, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks.